Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Bootlickers, shells, destabilize, source, peasants, vassals, Baluchs. I'm Useful Idiot, and today, as promised, I want to talk about Balochistan. I just did a big picture look at Pakistan, and now I want to talk about Balochistan. This is a region of Pakistan that when Pakistan became independent from India in 1947, after India got its independence from Britain, in the post-World War II era, Pakistan was created to create a Muslim state, and they annexed a region called Balochistan. And as you would imagine, there has been resistance ever since. And Balochistan is the same story that we see in so many other regions of the world, including the Kurds wanting their own Kurdistan state, and Balochistan also is the same. They are an ethnicity on their own, and they have their own territory, their own land, their own culture, their own language, and of course they want their own country. They don't really consider themselves part of Pakistan, because Pakistan, as mentioned in the previous video, is a country artificially tying together four ethnic groups: the Baluchs, the Pashtuns, the Punjabs, and the Singhs. So anyway, it's an interesting situation, and one worth watching, because Balochistan, like Kurdistan, is included on a redrawn map of these regions. And I tend to believe that the government-created, military-created map that has all the borders redrawn throughout that region is a clue, or certainly more than a clue, of how they envision the world in the future. We're seeing these processes already, so there's no reason to doubt that this is what's going to happen. We're seeing each country, one after another, destabilized, ethnic rivalries exploited, and the government taken down, fragmented. And before we build it up into a vassal state, or at least a more friendly state, and that's what we're going to see in Pakistan as well. So I believe we're going to see a free Kurdistan, and I believe we're going to see a free Balochistan as well, although it will be a very hard-fought battle for a number of reasons. Balochistan is 40% of Pakistan's landmass. So there's one reason why Greater Pakistan would never give it up, and certainly a reason why they need to be broken up. And Pakistan's extensive oil and gas reserves are largely located in Balochistan, and they're largely unexplored by Western standards. So oil and gas reserves has a way of luring all the bad actors and all the vultures. And then there's also extensive mineral resources, and there's also an Iran-India pipeline that will go through Balochistan. So that's part of the geopolitical picture that Balochistan plays, and another reason why the United States is interested in that. Certainly we have some issues with an Iran-India pipeline. And another thing that's made it more complicated is Pakistan has used Chinese loans and Chinese expertise and U.S. money to build a deep sea port. And it's called Gwadar, and it's been built in the last 10 years. So since the War on Terror, now we have a new international deep sea port in Balochistan. So that's going to lure a lot of foreigners. It's going to lure a lot of Pakistanis, and Balochistan's ethnic population will be watered down. So that's another reason why we're going to have to see events unfold fairly quickly. And the Balochistan national resistance movement dates back to the 1940s, when Balochistan was first invaded by Pakistan. And this resistance has flared up, and of course has flared up recently. There's actually been government airstrikes, and the air is very remote. So for even within Pakistan, it's very difficult terrain, and the army cannot maintain control there. And as I brought up in the other video, we have some recent events where the regional leader of Balochistan has been removed, and Pakistani troops are being sent to the capital of the region. So there's a crackdown going on Balochistan right now, and of course resistance will continue. And thousands have been killed over the decades, including many resistance leaders. And so this is a internal struggle for Pakistan for a long time. And as mentioned, it's convenient because of the U.S. now that the Pakistani government can refer to the Baluch resistance freedom fighters as terrorists, and therefore can show them no mercy and receive American aid to help crush them. And so there's a kind of a snapshot of Balochistan. Let's look at some other facts. There's a lot of Western oil companies there, surprisingly. BP, Italy's Eni, BHP, and Austria's OMV are all operating there. And then we also have, interestingly enough, a lot of Western banks. The financial advisor for Musharraf actually was a Citigroup banker. So the bankers have their tentacles everywhere, and so Pakistan is no exception. They have supposedly 6 trillion barrels of oil reserves in Balochistan, and there is probably the #1 reason why I believe eventually the United States foreign policy will make sure that there is a breakaway independent Balochistan. And it also makes sense that this would be part of the long-term American goal, because right now Pakistan is an ally of China, and they are both nuclear powers, and that is an interesting relationship that they have. And if the United States could undermine that completely by taking away all those resources from Pakistan in a free Balochistan that is a United States vassal, then that is quite an ambitious goal, and I think that would be what they're after. So, and Balochistan is poor and underdeveloped and sitting on vast resources, and this is just like the Tuaregs in northern Mali, and just like the Kurds in their region, Syria and Iraq. So, fortunately, we've seen the Kurds in northern Iraq thrive, given a chance to have autonomy. And the same thing would happen in a free, independent Kurdistan, and certainly would happen in a free, independent Balochistan. So, so there we have the U.S. favors a greater Balochistan, which would include the Baluch region in Iran, as well as a small part of Afghanistan. And that's a interesting part of this puzzle too, with Balochistan in the this map that they used, and it's used by NATO's Defense College and the National War Academy. So it's a fairly reputable, reliable source for getting this map and realizing that it's a map of what U.S. foreign policy will be after. And in fact, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters discussed in the June 2006 Armed Forces Journal this very scenario of a greater Balochistan, which would include the Baluch region in Iran, as well as a small part of Afghanistan. Doesn't that sound familiar again? We're going to have all the Baluch regions from 3 different countries, all united as a greater Balochistan, and we will have chunks of 4 different countries put together to create a free Kurdistan. And this is another pattern we're going to see as all these borders are redrawn. And Pakistan and Balochistan are part of that process. So for all those people, there you have it, Balochistan. It's a part of the Pakistan story, and everybody should be keeping their eye on what's going on in Pakistan and what is going on in Balochistan, because we will be hearing a lot more about it, particularly if the experts in Washington are right and they expect Pakistan to be a failed state in the next 2 years. Then we're going to see something dramatic happen with Balochistan. I'm useful idiot. Don't you be one too.